If you hear any strange sounds, it's because I'm on the front porch rocking. A door may open, a car may go by, or a golf cart, or some other people in the distance speaking. I'm having jasmine tea while we chat. And this was a somewhat traumatic week. And I'm here to reminisce about Vincent James Lionelli, who was born in December of 1952 and died in October of 1991. I don't know what he died from. I don't know if he was one of the people who died during the AIDS crisis prior to the cocktail. I don't know if he remembered me or thought of me or considered that he had someone in New York thinking about him while he lived in California. But he was a road that I did not choose. It was a point in my life where I had just left my family, and I was in a lot of pain. I was insecure about life. I had no job. Well, I had a job that made $100 a week, just enough to cover therapy. And it was a somewhat traumatic time for me. It was a time of trying to deal with the loss of innocence from, having been molested as a child, from having been battered from birth, from having been incested for 5 years and raped by a group of men. It was, all of that was inside of me, and I was doing the best that I could as a 17-year-old to deal with that madness in my brain. And Vincent was someone that I met in the village, just chatting one day. He was already seeing my brother and my brother's friend and a gazillion other people because he was a call boy. He was a strapping young Italian kid who was still in the armed forces and in desperate need to get out. I helped him to get out of the armed forces by simply admitting that I was gay, he was gay, and that we were together. And they released him. I'm not sure if it was with honors, without honors, or whatever it was. He was released. And he got his freedom. Immediately after, he purchased a large automobile, some kind of Charger. And I remember meeting with him one day at a bar, and he was extremely stressed out because apparently he had just gotten into an accident. Hit a car, or a car hit him. I'm not sure what it was exactly, but it was a serious accident, and there was a major lawsuit filed, and, I know nothing about it, so I had nothing to do with that. These are just snippets of what I engaged in while, we basically, I can't say we saw each other, we never officially dated, even though he proposed after he moved to California. But he moved. He was young and had no real job. And I had no real job anywhere but where I was in New York. I had no home other than where I had been raised in New York, even though it was a nightmare to be there. And for years I tried to track him down and could not for the life of me track him anywhere. I knew that he had moved to California, and I kept searching the internet. There were no records of him. There was nothing. And he wasn't notorious, so there were no criminal records even to search for. And I didn't have the money to do that anyway. When I was 46, I remember thinking to myself, the first drugs that they gave me for HIV uh, caused Stephen Johnson syndrome, which was a deadly allergy to the medication. And it almost killed me. A lot of people who got that symptom from the meds died from it because it burned all of their internal organs, and they just were some of the fatalities of the time. With me, it only affected the outside of my body, my skin, from scalp all the way to the soles of my feet were red, swollen, and blistered. And the pain was excruciating. About a week after it started, I looked like Quasimodo. I cannot even explain the swelling that had taken place in my body, my face, my head, everything was just oversized and blistered. It was a nightmare that I dealt with for about 8 months, and during that time, I kept asking myself about my regrets. What did I regret in life? And I had not considered that I had any regrets. I had no regrets, except never having gotten tattoos. Because my mother, my grandmother, my father, everybody insisted I couldn't have them. You know, they denoted a particular class of people, and you didn't want to be one of them. So I avoided it like the plague. It happened that I recall thinking to myself while I was with a personal trainer trying to get through the process, because I became anorexic. They had simultaneously put me on antidepressants, and that the side effect of that medication caused me to lose interest in eating, and I dropped about 70 pounds overnight. It was very dramatic, and it was very sudden, and I knew that I couldn't continue that course. So personal trainer helped me to get into shape and put some muscle on and give me a normal-looking body and face. You know, that's what I needed. But that was the only regret, not having had my tattoos. And those tattoos seemed important enough that as soon as my skin recovered, I signed up and got like 15 tattoos in 2 months. I stopped after that. I just, the tattoo artist who was working on me needed to go back to his wife who had moved to Florida, and that was the end of my tattoo, trip. So, all that being said, I've always lived life without having regrets. I've had none. There was never a reason to even think that I might have any. Until this week, when, while searching for Vincent James Lionelli, who was one of the first loves of my life, and who, up until today, has held a piece of my heart, I suddenly realized that I might have a second regret for not having chosen the path that led me to a life with him in California. It's a little late to consider at this point, given that he's been dead 30 years now. Well, October will be 30 years. But it was very disheartening to come to terms with his death. It was as if he had died Monday when I found out. March 21st. I think it was Monday. Whichever day it was an actual formal search that I had done, and he came up, and he was marked as deceased, previously living in California, moved to Reno, Nevada, and then died in Los Angeles in a hospital. And that was not what I wanted to read. It was so shocking to me emotionally that I just burst into tears. And I had a very, very emotional night. The following morning was no different. I woke up with the same mental state, and I cried all morning. I was trying desperately to recover from having found this out. And, I wanted I wanted desperately to go back in time and rethink my choices. The problem is I don't regret having lived as long as I have, nor do I regret having met the people that I have, because they've all been incredible entities in my life. And I still wonder what would have happened. And I'm sitting here wondering that. What would have happened had I elected to go with him? Stop therapy. Stop worrying and being afraid of making a choice that perhaps was not an ideal choice at the time. But if I had taken the risk to be with him, and I wonder whether he would have been alive today, or whether he would still have died, and I would have suffered through that. We can't control everything in our lives. We control our choices, but even those, we only have control while they line up. This one apparently was not lining up with my time back then. It was not aligned for me to choose him, because as a logical OCD individual, I knew he has no job, I have no job, there's no money, where are we going to live? I don't want to live on the street. Who's going to take care of me? He was only 2 years older than I. I don't think he was qualified to do the job. Nice a man as he was, boy, he was 21. It just, at present it is obviously what it is. I made my choice. It was not to follow him. And now I have this just black hole sitting in my chest, because there's no more hope of ever finding him or seeing him or, feeling his hand in mine. And it was just another tragedy in life. For him 30 years ago, and for me in 2021. I hope you're all having a better day than I take that back. I'm having a fabulous day. I'm retired. I'm on my front porch. Brian is watering the new plants we put in, rose bushes. And Brian's my husband of the last almost 20 years. So it's not like I've been alone and suffering. I've never been alone. But still, there is the Jimmy life that I missed. The Vincent James Lionelli partnership that I did not allow, out of fear and logic. Jimmy, wherever you are, God bless you. And I hope that you didn't suffer.